You feel like
It's
your
like-
stomach's a bottomless pit, then you eat a lot, and then
You feel like you're gonna explode.
and it doesn't feel like you're a teenager now, so you're having
Right.
teenager emotions. When Sumi first suggested that it might be because of my teenagerness, I was just
very
like, oh,
annoying. Yeah, it's just like,
what are you talking about?
It's okay to like not wake up feeling energized in the morning.
It's okay to like eat until you want to explode.
And we're like, thank
it's
you.
okay.
It's just really, really, really suboptimal how we prepare these kids for this and how we react to them when they're having these struggles where we think they don't want to listen to me and what I could say to help them. When it's like, you see them being like, oh, I don't want to listen to you. That's a sign of weakness. That's a sign of struggling. That's a sign of, please help me. I don't know what's going on.
I want to give some slack to the parents because, like, the kid's going through this, right?
The parents tired.
And parents tired.
Yeah.
And then the kid decides to blame it on them.
Right.
And start being like, you suck. This is because of you. Like, what
You're
are
a horrible parent. You never loved me.
Then they're just like,
Yeah. As you may have noticed, we are teenagers. And as teenagers, we feel an obligation to warn all the younglings of what teenagehood really is.
yeah.
But well, in our last teenage podcast,
It was when I turned 13.
Yeah, and we were talking about how
Why do people
always
talk?
focus on the physical aspects and not the mental aspects. And here's what I think it is. I think that both aspects are taught poorly. So I think that's the problem, is that just all around it's not really actually explained very well. And I think that for the bodily changes and stuff, they'll just be like, oh yeah, you're gonna, go through the obvious changes.
Yeah.
Which, as we also talked about in the last podcast, you can see an adult and just kind of like get an idea what's gonna happen to me.
Well,
there's
there's an Odd Ones Out video. That's like
the puberty platypus.
Puberty platypus.
You know those going through puberty videos your 8th grade science teacher shows you for some reason? The ones that are like, hey boys, I'm the puberty platypus, and I'm here to tell you that your body is going through some wonderful changes.
That's like the kind of thing that a lot of schools will show the kids, where it's like, oh, okay, you're gonna teach about how you get all sweaty and stinky and hairy.
Right. Yeah.
And that's wonderful.
Right.
That's the thing where you get pimply and you get sweaty and you get hairy.
Right.
Like, that's the kind of thing that I always knew was coming.
Right.
I was not expecting the weird, like, jolts of, like, tummy issues and, like, being tired all the time.
Yeah.
And, like, when you were having the weird appetite issues when you were 13.
Yeah.
I remember you were so confused. You're like,
I was
why
like,
is this
what's
happening?
going on? Yeah, and I didn't realize until Isla started being like, I don't know why I'm just eating so much. I like feel it's like a full hungry sensation.
You feel like
It's
your
like-
stomach's a bottomless pit.
Yeah.
Then you eat a lot, and then
You feel like you're gonna explode. Yeah. And I was like, thank you for like helping me realize that I'm not crazy and this is like normal, because it'll be like, oh yeah, you're gonna eat more as a teenager. But that doesn't explain it.
That doesn't cover it.
That does not do it justice.
Yeah,
To what?
obviously there was something missing in the explanation, because little 13-year-old Sube was like, what's wrong with me?
I'm like, and I think that part of it is kind of what we talked about in our adventure podcast, where it's like you can say like, oh yeah, going on a 10-minute run every day will reduce your rate of Alzheimer's and improve cardiovascular health and all that sort of stuff.
Because we only run for 5 minutes.
Yeah. And it'll just be kind of like an explanation as to like, here's what is happening, but it doesn't capture the experience of it. And I think specifically what's missing is the magnitude, because you can tell like a preteen who's about to go through all this stuff and say like, like, oh yeah, you're gonna get tired and you're gonna have changes in your appetite and you're going to have mood swings. But I feel like it's so reductive to say mood swings for someone who's like,
because they haven't experienced it yet.
Yeah.
Like they'll think that and they'll think, oh, okay, a bad day when I'm not feeling very don't have a lot of appetite. Okay, that's what's coming next. A bad day when I didn't get like a ton of sleep and I'm like a little sleepy. Okay,
right.
That's what's coming next. And then puberty hits and all of a sudden they're like super tired. They're having like mood swings and existential crisis. And then they're also ravenous all the time, even though they just ate 5 minutes ago. Yeah. They're like,
yeah, because it's a material sort of like you're experiencing things on a whole nother level, and to even say that is like to so like reduce the real experience of it, because I think that that's part of what is missing is communicating the magnitude, right? And that's part of what I asked ChatGPT. I want to read my actual prompt because we were talking about this and we're like, yeah, we should do a podcast where we just complain about all the things that are happening to us. But I wrote, please explain the actually good reason why teenagehood is so hard on your body in so many different ways and why it actually makes sense for the extremity and magnitude of all the fatigue changes in appetite, emotional changes, etc. And so it was really actually refreshing to hear the real reason why, which is that humans
were very validating.
Yeah. Or it was like, it's okay to like, not wake up feeling energized in the morning. Like, that's...
It's okay to like eat until you want to explode.
And we're like, thank you.
It's okay to be lazy and feel like you're like saying, super lazy.
You're not lazy, and we're like, yeah, okay. But the reason why is because humans are actually a very unique species in the sense that like the fact that, well, obviously we're like literally rule the earth, and there's a reason why, and it's because we have these ginormous brains, and for most other like for most other species, you have like a small antelope, and then the adult antelope is just a larger version of the small antelope. Yeah. Plus some like horns. I don't know anything about antelope.
Didn't you say like when a deer gives birth, like the deer, like...
Yeah. Okay. The little baby deer falls out and then just gets on its hooves. This could be totally wrong, but I'm pretty sure from some like nature documentary.
Well, it definitely takes a longer time
for a human baby
to learn how to walk and like do all these things.
And a lot of it is the fact that we're so adaptable, that we're so socially complex, and the fact that there's just a lot of things. A child human is kind of like has a completely different purpose than an adult human in terms of like what our mind and bodies are wired for. Like the fact that, and it was saying like you're basically, you have, as a child, you have so many neural synapses, and like millions of them get purged during teenagehood. And basically a lot of it is that you're basically being reconstructed into a completely different like kind of person, right? Kind of being.
That's freaky.
On a physical and mental level, and it was saying there's a lot of okay, honestly I need to read this because I think it's really important to understand the why behind these things, because I feel like the real issue is that you'll say mood swings and hormones, like that's supposed to explain anything. Yeah. Right? And
just the puberty platypus. It's just the hormones.
Puberty platypus is gonna explain everything. And I think that that's the real issue, is not actually understanding on a fundamental like the basis of why is any of this happening. And that's specifically what I wanted answered when I did that prompt, is what warrants the magnitude of this experience. Right? Because it is something that is more like uniquely human. It's not like the other species go through something to this extreme of like teenagehood. It's really weird, and it's really hard to kind of understand why it would make sense.
Yeah, like when I turned 13, like a couple weeks afterwards, I started getting these like feeling like these emotions, okay? Like feeling like bad sometimes. And not knowing why, because you felt the emotion before. Right. And so you're like, okay, what's causing this, right? Right. Because when you're 3 and you don't get your cookie, usually that's going to cause a bad emotion. You're like,
it's
okay,
very
this is
clear.
pretty straightforward.
I'm sad because I didn't get my cookie. So
but now I'm like sad and I'm like, I don't know why. What's going on? And it doesn't feel like you're a teenager now, so you're having teenager emotions.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't feel that way.
Right.
Like, when Sumi first suggested that it might be because of my teenagerness,
yeah, that was very
like,
annoying. That was just like,
what are you talking about? But then it kept happening, and I'm like, okay,
and
maybe
also,
there's something to this.
And when I brung up the teenager emotions, I also didn't mean that as to diminish it or to say that didn't require further explanation.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's like teenager emotion, but there's still a lot that you're still working through and questions that need answered and probably important things those emotions are pointing to.
Yeah.
But then there's something to the unique experience of how they come about and how they influence you during this period of time.
In other words, very overwhelming and
Right,
extreme and
you just seem
tough.
like looking at your life and how like the actual reality of your life, it seems so out of proportion that you're like feeling all these things given that you just woke up in the morning and made yourself some breakfast or something.
And this is like talking from the perspective of a 13-year-old who's like just starting, like, going through this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too, weird into it, but like, it's just, it was unexpected. It was unexpected even with all of the little jokes and hints that the parents will do of like, oh, hormones, just wait till you're a teenager, then you're gonna suck.
Yeah. What it doesn't actually really explain. So there are some things that I thought was really actually helpful about this, that it was saying, basically your brain and body are rebuilding themselves at the same time you're being upgraded into a human adult, and that your brain is undergoing the single largest reconstruction of your entire life. So it's a process called synaptic pruning. It throws out millions of neural connections, strengthens the one you use, and rebuilds cord circuits for reasoning, planning, social navigation, all those sorts of things. So it's saying like it's not mood swings. It's basically renovating your entire brain and how it works, right? And that's what I feel like is different, is saying you're going through changes. It sounds like you're just adding things on, right? Instead of literally a fundamental shift onto the basis of how you experience your brain, right? And then also your body, right? And so then it's saying like it's the ChatGPT metaphor. Imagine trying to live in a house while every room is being remodeled at once. So the fatigue is not psychological, it's metabolic. So it's literally on a physical level. It makes sense that you're burning so much energy. It says your brain burns more energy in adolescence than at any other time except infancy. And so that's what I think is, and it was saying like things like why things can be so inconsistent in terms of your appetite, because you're having all these different parts of your body and your brain being rebuilt into different ways, whether it's your immune system or your hormones or whatever, and that sort of stuff. It just makes a lot of sense that after reading that I was like, okay, it makes sense that the magnitude of this would be so different. And it also that it allows us as humans to be so much more powerful than these other animals, given that we have such a complex way of our brains functioning, and also the fact that we have all these different life stages and it's so different, right?
And it's also like, it's kind of funny because ChatGPT described like when a baby comes out, when a human baby comes out, it's helpless. Like you can just leave it there and it'll just die. Which is like really
its only
pathetic.
weapon is being so ugly it's cute, and it's crying.
Shriek. It's screaming shriek. And then so then you've got this thing, and it's like it's not developed enough to be able to take care of itself, and be able to do anything. And so it's the ChatGPT described the tribe when it's still a baby as like it's extra womb.
Right.
Where it's like it's still growing and developing, but then it's like growing and developing like socially too.
In the environment that it's going to
environment.
exist in,
Yeah.
right? Which makes a lot of sense because you think about how much our environment has changed. The fact that we as humans, like a baby, can just be raised in a world with smartphones and these giant cities, and that's just normal, and they're able to just adapt to that, is because then it's just humans are just really weird. That's basically the basis of it. But I think that part of it is like, you know, being able to understand the magnitude and the extremity of the experience. And I think that kind of relates to a broader problem that we've been talking about of how I feel like a lot of these things are just kind of talked about at a surface level, and the fact that you could just tell, oh, your mood swings and that sort of stuff is kind of almost disassociative in the sense that you're like removing the really visceral like aspect of it, and how it's just you don't go through those things and just think, oh, it's just a mood swing. That's not how you would experience at all,
feeling
right?
the emotions, you're feeling the impact.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a mood swing. It feels like
Right.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah. And so it would be better if we just said, oh, you're going through and then you're like,
It's just like, okay, that's a little bit more towards it, but then like how are you supposed to be prepared for
right.
You know?
And I feel like at the very least, and it's also not helpful at all if you have parents and adults
like,
looking at you.
Okay, Timmy. So we're going to talk about something that's coming for you, okay? This is something that comes for everyone in time. And it's going to have an effect on your body. And it's going to have an effect on your mind.
Right.
So we got to make sure you're prepared for this, okay?
Yeah.
And
that's like how it's talked about beforehand. But then even while like if a teenager's going through something where they're literally like, what on earth is this? I have no idea what's going on. It's really scary. And if they're going through that and then the adults around them are like, oh, Billy's going through his mood swings.
Yeah, he's just going through puberty.
You so puberty teenagers, they're so difficult.
They're so
and it's
they're starting to rebel.
Yeah.
And it's, just that teenager stuff.
And that was something that was also frustrating for us, is how much rebellion was being normalized. And then we were looked at as like, something must be wrong because we aren't rebelling. And then
really?
Yeah, because then parents would be like what's going on? Like, is your child like getting out? Are they having the like experiences
touching
of like
the grass? Are they talking to people?
Well, yeah, more just like you'll think, oh, are you just like not allowing your child to be an individual and like actually get out and have those experiences if they're not rebelling. Like, I think that rebellion got so normalized that there's a difference between having more like disagreements with your parent, which obviously is going to have to happen if you're becoming more of an individual, and just humans generally disagree with each other and get on each other's nerves all the time.
Yeah.
But between like basically not having anything resembling a constructive relationship.
Yeah.
Right? And that's became kind of so normalized, and I think part of it is because one, we do such a bad job of preparing kids for what's going to happen to them. And then while it's happening, even though adults have gone through this, they know how scary teenagehood is. And then oftentimes it seems like they're not able to, I think a lot of adults, they think, oh, I can't really share my own experience. A lot of adults are like, a lot of parents are scared of talking about their own struggles, because then they think, oh, maybe then I'll be less credible to my kids. They won't want to listen to that. They won't be interested. When it's like, part of what was really important for us when our parents were engaging with us is explaining how confusing and hard life is. And that's part of like we're hearing about.
No way like actually prepared me. Like,
right.
It doesn't communicate the experience.
But it's infinitely better than having adults around you who pretend like none of it happened, right? And to think that, oh, and then you think...
No wonder teenagers are like, you don't understand me.
Right.
You don't understand.
And when you're experiencing something of that magnitude, you think, how could any of these normal people that I'm engaging with in normal life possibly understand this completely unnatural, like nothing like I've ever experienced before?
And also,
right?
like, something that's interesting is, like, I feel like this kind of stuff is like happening earlier and earlier for kids. Like, I don't know. I don't know. But I think being in the environment of school and like, you know, all of that hormones and like mood swings all happening in one, like, you know, building with a bunch of other like socially anxious.
Here's
like,
what's, it's like you literally are just in a building with all these kids experiencing all this stuff at the same time, when you literally, so then you basically have no example of like normal emotional regulation and like how to deal with these things, and people who can say, who aren't experiencing that, who can just be like, hey, the world isn't ending, even though it feels like it, and so let's just like deal with this and talk through this and like just, you know, be calm about it and not just like put it on, because there's so many knee-jerk reactions you can have to something of that magnitude when you're faced with such an extreme emotion. There's so many ways you can misplace it and react in a very bad way because you have no idea how to handle it.
And how are you supposed to get the example and learn how to deal with that from a bunch of other kids who don't know what they're talking about and are going through the same emotions and don't know what they are and where they're coming from?
Yeah.
Like, how are you supposed to do that? Like, I can't imagine going through that and being alone and feel like I can't talk to my friends about it, feeling like I can't talk to my parents about it.
Especially because you literally, they segregate the grades. Because, like, for you, a lot of it, you could talk to me.
Yeah.
And I'm 3 years older, so I can tell you, here's kind of, I remember when I was going through this.
Yeah.
And then you're missing out. It's like so ridiculous. It's so stupid that we don't like, that we haven't seen this as such a major problem, especially given the whole like mental health crisis of teenagehood. I'm like, you know, I think teenagehood feels like a mental health crisis regardless of what environment you're going through and like whether or not you're being exposed. You're like the most wholesome person I've ever met in my entire life in terms of the stuff you expose yourself to and all that sort of thing, and it's still like so hard. And so like, how do you do that with all these other factors, with like literally nobody to talk to that actually has the more experience that can help you through these things? And then you're supposed to go like talk to like a guidance counselor or something about these things where you're like, it's just really, really, really suboptimal how we prepare these kids for this and how we react to them when they're having these struggles, where we think, oh, they don't want to listen to me and what I could say to help them. When it's like, you see them acting all like, you know, doing all these things that are not good for them and acting so confident in terms of just being like, I don't want to listen to you. That's a sign of weakness. That's a sign of struggling. That's a sign of, please help me. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
That's not a sign of, I should just leave this kid alone because they don't want to talk to me. Like, that's part of what I feel like adults need to do, is think back to their own experience of going through these things that are so hard and you're so confused, and to remember what that's like and to think of what I wish somebody would have done for me in that situation, because it's not leave me alone to deal with all these things alone. That's not the way that we should be handling these things.
Yeah, and also like, I don't know. I don't know how these kids are trying to cope with that when there are all the other just separate like, but like magnified struggles that are just coming from like, you know, things that are inappropriate and not good being, you know, like through social media and shows, and like a bunch of kids my age are watching Squid Game. Squid Game. I had no idea what it is. I literally thought it was about squids. Like, I thought it was about squids.
We were like, oh, squids? That's cool.
Squids, yeah. And then I looked it up. Well, I actually, like, my friend was talking about it, right? And I was just like, wait, what? What is this? Like, what?
Yeah.
And then I was scared to look up the trailer, because I was scared to look up the trailer based on what she said. I was like, I literally, like, I get freaked out by Hunger Games.
Right.
I get, you know, I don't like that stuff. You know, I'm a delicate little sheltered little child. But like, so I asked ChatGPT. I was like, okay, what is this? Explain to me in a not disturbing way.
Right.
I was just like,
right.
this is what they're watching while they're going through these emotional magnified struggles.
And I think a big part of
what?
And I think a big part of it yeah, I mean, and it is something where I think a lot of it also comes down to a big part of how you might deal with those emotions is desensitizing yourself and exposing yourself to these things that are extremely like disturbing and extremely just like, you know, because that's a way of coping, and that's a way of trying to, how do you resonate with someone who's going through such an extreme emotional state like that, right? They're not gonna
create a song that's like, I hate life, I hate everything,
my skin,
people suck, everything sucks.
Well, you're not gonna resonate you're not gonna resonate with a show about cupcakes and rainbows, right? That's not gonna be what kind of like speaks to your experience, right? And I think that part of it is also a broader desensitization, and it's the whole way that we've been talking about, you know, what, you know, when it comes to how adults describe teenagehood and these sorts of terms that are so diminishing in terms of the experience, is because, you know, I think a lot of what we do is we try to disassociate from the experience and we try to diminish it, right? And that, you know, as a way of trying to deal with it, but obviously that doesn't actually really help and address the real problem. And another way in which these shows can also think maybe it's helping is that it's also, you need something so extreme to distract from something that's so extreme going on internally, right? Because if you're going through something so extreme and then someone's like, hey, look at this picture I drew, right? It's not like you're not gonna have any interest in that. So I think a lot of these things kind of reflect how much these young people are so confused and are struggling so much. And you're thinking from,
well, I don't know, I like drawing pictures, like
right.
I think that, like,
here's what happens is that whenever you go through those emotions, we talk about it and we resolve them.
Yeah.
But that's like how the real scary part is when you have no mechanism for resolving those
just,
things,
like, hanging
right?
in the back of your mind.
That's honestly, because it's already, you know, it's already hard enough.
Yeah.
Just having those things.
And it's also like hard for you, like, I don't know, to deal with that. Like, explain
Right.
this to
You're
me.
like, oh, like,
I don't know what that is anymore. And you're like, okay, Isla. All right, so let's work through this. So what exactly do you think caused this emotional? I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
I'm sorry.
No, you're extremely good at like knowing how to like, you're very good at feeling the emotion, not suppressing it, while also being able to like try to observe it at the same time.
Like, I want to give some slack to the parents,
right?
Because like imagine like the kids going through this, right?
It's so hard. It's so annoying. I'm just kidding.
Like the kids going through this, right?
Right. Yeah. The parents tired.
And then the parents tired.
Yeah.
And then the kid decides to blame it on them.
Right.
And start being like, "You suck. This is because of you." Like, what
You're
are
a horrible parent. You never loved me. And they're like.
Then they're just like,
yeah.
it's like, yeah,
right. And it of course, I think for a lot of parents, okay, here's the thing: the parents went through this teenagehood, but that doesn't mean they ever had it explained to them, and that doesn't mean that they even now understand really what it was.
Yeah,
right.
and also,
and
like,
can extrapolate that to understand their kid's situation, because also the kid's situation is so much more different than when they experienced it.
Because of all these squids, and,
all the squids and the whatever.
all the squids
that the kids are watching these days.
Yeah, the kids, what they're doing these days, and all the technologies.
Right. Yeah. And so
I'm sorry, that would sound really insulting.
Well, there definitely a lot of sympathy to the parents, because it is something that like we've never encountered before, right? And as you're saying, like, and then the fact that So it's really hard for a parent to know how to extrapolate their experience with these emotions onto a completely different environment, onto the emotional hurting of when your child starts to be all critical and you're losing your relationship with them and they're doing all these damaging things and you don't know how to help them. Yeah. Right? That's a really scary position.
You're trying to be patient and you're trying to be understanding and like, well, I mean, I don't know. I haven't been in
I mean, yeah, of course, as a parent, you're going to be trying to do the best you can. Yeah, but then there's all these other things that
hard.
you're dealing with.
All I know is that it's hard.
Yeah, it's
if it wasn't hard, then we wouldn't be having so much trouble with it.
Yeah.
And rebelling wouldn't be such a normal thing, I feel like.
Yeah. And that's part of what we said in the last teenage podcast is we were saying be honest with your kids about how scary it is. Because honestly, what these kids need is honesty about and that's in order to kind of just try to put their perspective, put things into perspective in terms of how crazy these things seem even to their parents trying to deal with issues of all the squids and all the stuff that's going on, right? And how it is
some squids.
Yeah,
just get rid of them squids. No,
right.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it's save the squids. But there's just there is so much that everyone's trying to deal with, and for even to have a parent just say what's going on nowadays is already so much to deal with. And then I also remember how difficult things were when I was a teenager. And I can't imagine combining those, right? The experience of teenagehood along with this environment, right? And that's part of why parents are struggling, is they don't really know what it is that their kids are going through and how to really help them. But at the very least, you could tell them that and say, you're kind of going through an anomaly time here along with an anomaly experience. And that's just going to feel really crazy and confusing. And at the very least, to just kind of to acknowledge that and to just kind of be honest. And that's something we were talking to, because we're hearing about a lot of like people now our age are like drinking and that sort of stuff, and that a lot of parents don't know how to control their kids doing drugs and drinking and that sort of stuff. And so what they do is they say, is they're kind of okay with it, they'll help their kids get access to it, because what they're really worried about is if they're in a situation in which they're in trouble, I want to make sure that they call me.
Yeah.
Right. So what they're really worried
under the
about,
assumption
that they won't be able to control
that the kid's gonna be drinking no matter what.
So that's kind of a lot of the assumption that
I don't know if it's just me being like, not experienced, but that doesn't seem like amazing. It doesn't seem like a great situation.
It definitely is not. And it is crazy that a lot of parents are in a situation in which they kind of have to operate under the assumption that my kid is going to do this anyway, so I need to make sure I'm there if they're really in trouble.
You know what's even more crazy? I think if I was in school and I grew up in that environment where that was the norm, I would be doing that too.
Yeah, and that has been the crazy part for us, because we have kind of like, I would say, successfully kind of exited a lot of the craziness that's going on, right? And we've been trying to really like build a place where we can just have some kind of sanity as to putting these things in perspective, which is that it's not good for all these kids to be obviously drinking, doing all those sorts of things, but it does make sense given all the craziness they're going through, right? As we just talked about, in terms of all this emotional volatility and not knowing.
Humans are built to adapt. If that's the norm, if that's like, if that's what everyone's being like, oh, it's fine, you can just,
right.
If that's the norm.
If you think about all the social anxiety levels and everything that comes with teenagehood, as we're talking about, they're going to
be pushed to do that.
Yeah, if you're in a position where you're so scared and alone, of course you're going to drink when your friends are drinking. That's so it makes sense from that angle, but at the same time, you need to put in perspective, this is not normal good behavior, right? But then at the same time, for these parents to be able to, a lot in terms of like, struggles with drinking and how these things could potentially be damaging, to be able to, I think a lot of parents are scared to be honest and scared to talk to their teenagers about these things, which makes a lot of sense if you're in that volatile state, and then a lot of teenagers just be like, I hate you and you suck, right? And then right? and so of course, as a parent, you don't want to hear those things. You still want to have a relationship with your child, and so it was just a really hard situation to navigate. And I think that a lot of it, ultimately, a big part of what we're trying to do is that all these problems, the only way you're going to solve them is with understanding. And And of course, that's part of what we're trying to communicate, is that if you just tell, the whole like campaign against alcohol and against drugs that happened, and we were seeing the South Park where Mr. Garrison was just like, so I'm going to talk about alcohol, okay? So alcohol is bad, okay?
So first of all, smoking's bad. You shouldn't smoke. And alcohol is bad. You shouldn't drink alcohol. And as for drugs, well, drugs are bad. You shouldn't do drugs. Okay, that about wraps up my introduction.
It's not actually explaining anything about
not
anything.
Convincing
right.
the kids.
Right. And so it's not helpful to just say you're a bad person because you're, drinking below the legal age, when it's like, okay, if a kid is doing that, it means that they're struggling, and it means that there's something about their perspective that you don't understand if you don't understand their behavior.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that given everything that we've talked about in terms of teenagehood, in terms of
doing something that you don't understand, it means there's something you don't understand about their perspective.
Yeah. And so clearly there's a lot that needs to be understood, right? And I think that's why at the very least honesty can be somewhat of a, it can be the reliable mechanism towards, at the very least, we have kind of all the different data pieces, right? If we can at least kind of get all the perspectives on the table, then we can try to reconcile, what the parent is experiencing and what the child is experiencing, and what the child is experiencing in the environment of all their peers and all that sort of stuff, right? But I think that that's part of what I think kind of needs to be recognized, is that we should not diminish these experiences, and to be able to kind of recognize how difficult it is and how extreme and like unique and crazy this experience is at this time for so many people. And I think that that's a lot of what we're trying to understand our peers, because we left this and now we're hearing about it and we're just like, what's going on? And we're like, with the squids and the stuff
And then the
right.
And we're just like,
"Ah!" Yeah, and so
stop it.
Yeah.
Just stop it. Like,
right, yeah. And I consider ourselves to be extremely lucky and to have kind of dodged a bullet of our culture that was flying right towards our face. Like, I know that this is what was coming for me in 5th grade in elementary school if we hadn't left and if we hadn't done everything that we've done to get to this point. Like, I'm looking and I can imagine who I would be with, in the alternative reality in which, none of this happened. And, I would be experiencing the exact same things. And that's why I feel we kind of
got scared shivers.
we kind of, and because of that, we kind of feel a responsibility, because we know kind of, we went through ourselves what kind of is necessary to get out of this, right? And to kind of the fact that we aren't experiencing these problems,
and it
right?
wasn't
And to be
at
able to
7 years old, I was just like, I'm gonna, get out of the system to avoid all this stuff.
There was so much that we didn't understand, and yet were able to not be captured by. And that is something we're still trying to understand, is how exactly
lucky.
How exactly we managed to do, which there was a lot of things that we did that I thought were really good decisions. But at the same time, we did not realize the magnitude of these problems when we first started, and it took a really long time before we could really say that, like, no, what's happening in schools is really damaging, right?
Yeah.
Like at first it was like, hey, no, we can do better, right? And it took a while. We like had to work up to a point of conviction to say we can do better, right? And then now it's kind of like, oh my God, right? There's so much that needs to be
normalized.
improved. Yeah, and I think that we didn't get here because anyone was trying to hurt anybody, right? We didn't get here because parents don't care about their kids. Of course not, right? It's that we're in such a confusing, strange environment, and in order for us to navigate that as humans, being a human is already confusing enough, and we're already so limited, and we're already confused even without all this confusing stuff happening. That you just look at history and the fact that we were all like killing each other for most of most of the time,
very similar to monkeys. Who just throw poop at each other and get kill each other because of bananas.
Right.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know a lot about monkeys, but like, you know, you get the point. You get the idea.
Yeah. And I think that we need to have, you know, I think we need to be forgiving towards each other given all the craziness that's going on. And know that when we're doing these things, it's because we don't know better, right? And to solve that problem, we need to be able to understand each other, and especially for these young people, I think that they're really desperate for some sort of understanding of what's going on, and I think that that's part of what we want to do is at the very least share a perspective of, you know, this conversation started where we're just being like, you're gonna feel really hungry and
I'm just so tired all the time.
yeah we're
but it's because of puberty. It's not because I'm lazy.
Yeah, clearly not.
Totally.
Yeah. Free pass, sleep in. Yeah. I love puberty. So you know, and we wanted to start out at the very least. You can send this to our cousins and be like, here's what's coming. You know, your body's gonna feel. It's not just gonna go through changes, but it's gonna like it's good. It's extreme, and it's something that when it does happen, it's not going to just, you're not going to just be able to clearly identify that as the puberty thing that's happening. It just feels, you know, it's just going to happen, and it's gonna take a while for you to get a handle
thinking about it from an outside perspective.
Yeah.
You're feeling it.
Yeah.
You're experiencing it.
Yeah. And that at the very least to be able to, you know, have someone to talk to that's not going to diminish your experience, and that's going to recognize that it's really hard to be a human being, and that a lot of what we really want is to be able to go through that experience together, to be able to be honest with somebody about it who's going to help you try to understand. Yeah. It's really hard to just understand, why am I feeling this way, right? Why am I doing these things? Right?
Yeah.
You know, and that's something that's scary to realize, that you don't understand why you're feeling certain ways. You don't understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, right? And that's a really kind of scary thing to try to process. But at the very least, if we're there together, recognizing that, we can start that conversation.